In this video, I'll be rating the best and the worst Legends tactical abilities in Apex Legends Season 18. They'll be rated solely on their tacticals and nothing else. I haven't seen many tactical ability tier lists for Apex and I thought this would be a fun one to do. As always guys, this is just my opinion and I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings down in the comments. Before we get into this, thank you to everyone that has newly subscribed since my last video. Let's see if we can get to 500 subscribers from this one. It's great to see my small community grow and I appreciate every single one of you, so thank you. Starting things off once again with Ashe in the bottom of D tier is our Arc Snare. Ashe's Arc Snare I think is one of the worst tacticals in the game right now for reasons I explained before, as it is very slow moving if thrown at an enemy far away and they are able to avoid it easily if they see it coming. If it does manage to snare them and you are far away, it only lasts 5 seconds and won't be worth your while going for the push. The only time I can see her Arc Snare being useful is if you throw it at a closed door or into the corner of an open door. You can deter enemy pushes or catch opponents off guard while moving to cover as you coordinate your 3-stack to delete them quick. But other than that, I do think that Ashe's tactical needs to be looked at by the devs in some way. Next is Ballistic and his Whistler. A tactical that can overheat an opponent's weapon in theory sounds very good, but at the same time there is a fine line between good and overpowered. Ballistic's Whistler did get a nerf at the start of this season for how long it makes your gun overheat for. And don't get me wrong, I've been caught out by this myself, as what can you do when you get hit and forced into a fight where you can't shoot your gun for briefly? What lets his tactical down for me is how inconsistent it is at hitting an opponent. I haven't played much Ballistic myself, but when I'm in fights against him I rarely ever get hit by his Whistler, and I also think it's very easy to avoid. Finally in D tier I have Seer and his focus of attention. With his nerf, this tactical went from top tier to bottom tier, with the stun effect only lasting half a second now compared to it lasting 2.5 seconds previously, which is a huge difference as seconds really do count in Apex as it's such a fast paced game. It's also a lot easier for opponents not to get hit by this now, and even though it can still silence enemies for a total of 8 seconds, you need to make it connect, which like I said before, it's a lot more difficult to do now. So unfortunately, Seer's tactical remains in D tier. Moving on to C tier now, Mirage is next up with his Psych Out. Although his tactical doesn't really stack up well to most other legends in the game, it did get a buff not too long ago, where if an enemy shoots his decoy, you'll get an indicator from the direction they were shooting you from. It would be nice if they buffed his tactical a little more, for example, if they made his decoy pop bats if you pop bats or something like that. A good thing about his tactical is that it has a short cooldown and it's always fun to see if you can hide in plain sight of your enemies. Next up in C tier we have Caustic and his Nox gas trap. These are nowhere near as good as they used to be, as they can now be destroyed even when they have been set off, compared to in the past where they actually couldn't be, which is probably when Caustic was at his best. He does have his day though when fighting in an indoor environment, by blocking doors with his traps, putting his traps at the entries and exits of buildings, or spamming his traps into an area that you are being pushed in. The only thing I feel about Caustic's tactical is that there are other defense legends that are better, so for now he's in C tier. Up next is Rampart and her amped cover. I think that Rampart's amped cover is only very slightly more versatile than Caustic's gas traps, as if you are caught in the open you can lay down some cover to bind yourself some time, but I think that's probably it. It does work well in door fights, as you can open doors, get a few shots off behind cover and close them again while making it harder for enemies to enter. Her amped cover combined with her Sheila is very powerful, but as this is only tacticals I can't really use that as a point. Putting up and taking down her walls can be a little bit tricky in intense situations, and if not taken down, enemy teams can potentially use your own tactical against you. Next is Valkyrie and her Missile Swarm. Again, this is another Legends tactical that was much better upon her release, but I do think it can be used well in gunfights to an extent. If your opponent has taken cover to heal or to hide, you can use her Missile Swarm to flush them out, and if hitting them, will deal 25 damage and stun them for a brief period of time, allowing you to follow up with the push. It has good coverage so it can hit multiple targets at once and has a decent range. What lets her tactical down is that it's very easily avoidable, so always be sure to make a Missile Swarm count when you use it. Crypto is next in C tier with his surveillance drone. This is very useful to place in an area when pushing a team, to get into his drone and scan beacons for whereabouts of other teams, and also flying ahead to scout the area, or even spying on fights and waiting for your best opportunity to fight. What lets this tactical down for me is that it takes a little while to get used to, and once it's destroyed, it takes 30 seconds to get back. A good supportive legend that we have up now is Newcastle and his mobile shield. For those of you that might not agree with my placement of Newcastle here, although yes he is strong and maybe deserves to be in a higher placement, but as this is just tacticals only, I just don't feel like his mobile shield is that good on its own. Don't get me wrong though, I'm not ruling it out altogether, as it definitely has its uses, like an extra piece of cover in close range fights, especially with shotguns, moving from cover to cover, and when used with his other abilities it can prove to be very strong. A downside to his mobile shield though is that it can be easily destroyed, which would not be ideal if destroyed when you're out in the open. Coming up next is Watson and her perimeter security. At the right place and at the right time, Watson's perimeter security is super strong, and the more experienced Watson mains have come up with some clever ways to get the most out of a tactical. Placing them at the top of zips in front of doors, and I've even seen Watsons linking up their perimeter security to other Watsons' perimeter security, actually making it unbreakable. I don't know if this has been fixed or not, but I must try this out one day and see. Okay, so kicking things off in B tier now, I have Vantage and her Echo relocation. As a repositioning ability, I feel it is good for pushing into a fight quicker, gaining height and getting out of fights effectively. The one thing that I don't like about a tactical is always having to recall Echo to make another jump, and the double jump animation does feel a little clunky, but other than that she has a pretty solid tactical. Next up is my main man in Apex, Octane and his stim. Octane's stim is very good for a number of things, including repositioning in gunfights, pushing aggressively when you've cracked an opponent's shield, running in and out of an area to collect a fallen teammate's banner, and disengaging from fights as long as you're not in the enemy's line of sight, especially if you're one-shot. Stimming decreases your flesh health, which takes some time to regen, so a little experience is needed to get used to the best times to use it. A lot of people misuse his stim, which is what gives Octane a bad name sometimes, but as I've mained it for quite a while now, my stim trigger finger is very disciplined. Next in B tier is Mad Maggie and her riot drill. As we all know, playing cover in Apex is very important, as it can literally make or break gunfights, and this is where Mad Maggie's drill shines. She can get knocks with her drill if an enemy runs into cover and they are low, and force opponents out of cover and into your line of sight. It has a reasonable cooldown which makes it viable almost all the time, and I love the way it can make enemy opponents panic when placed well, causing them to make mistakes and just in general cause a lot of annoyance to enemy teams. Fusey is next with his also very annoying knuckle cluster when going against it, but so much fun when you're using it. In a similar way to Maggie, he can force people out of cover, but not only this, he can actually set off Watson fences, caustic traps and blow open doors, even doors that have been reinforced by Catalyst. Like I said in my previous Legend tier video, this is one of Fusey's better abilities alongside his passive. But lately with Movement Legends tacticals being very popular at the moment, I feel that Fuse will stay in B tier for now in terms of his tactical. My top pick in B tier is Lifeline and her heal drone. It is very handy to have during a fight to keep your flesh health up while popping cells or batteries behind cover. It's also handy to have after fights to get your flesh health up quick while potentially shield swapping, meaning in most cases you'll be ready for a third party. Third parties are always highly likely, and not only does it benefit you, it benefits your whole team. Okay, so now we are moving on to A tier, and kicking things off in A tier we have Loba and her burglar's best friend. This tactical I think is very versatile in a lot of ways, for closing ground quickly if cracking enemy shields, and for switching up angles in fights. But what I like about this the most is that if used well, especially in buildings, you can either throw it into a building or out, which can either get you into cover or out of an enemy team pushing you from the inside. Just make sure you have your escape route planned. At first it can be a little tricky to get the hang of, but it won't be long until you figure it out. Next up in A tier we have Wraith and her tactical Into the Void. This tactical can be very strong if used right, but very weak if used poorly. I see a lot of Wraiths use this as soon as they are one-shot to escape fights, but because you can track her and there's no real escape plan from the player as they are panicking trying to get away, 80 to 90% of the time they're getting knocked. I think the best use you'll get out of a tactical is for using it to reposition in fights and possibly take advantage of when multiple teams are fighting to get different angles. And yes, for escaping, but not mindlessly. Just like Loba, if using this to escape, make sure you have it planned roughly. Moving on next to Bloodhound and the Eye of the Allfather scan. This is essentially wall hacks for a brief moment in time, giving yourself and your teammates very useful information on enemy whereabouts in fights. The range of the scan is pretty decent and can also be a good psychological factor to enemies who do get scanned to try and force them to reposition as your teammates get an angle. I think it's best to use the scan as you get into a fight rather than before, as you're basically giving away your position, which is not ideal. Coming next up now is Revenant and his new reworked tactical ability, the Shadow Pounce. The fact that Revenant has more or less got Octane's ultimate as his tactical makes him a top pick if your playstyle is aggressive. As this is a fairly fresh tactical, players are finding out new ways to play it each day. I couldn't say he would be the best at getting technical on controller, but if you're on keyboard and mouse, I'm sure you could get pretty crazy with it. Not only is this good for pushing, but also repositioning in fights as well. And overall, just a nice change in Revenant, making him more fun to play. Next is Gibby and his Dome of Protection. There are a lot of ways you can utilise Gibby's Dome, from creating cover in open areas, using it to outplay enemies by moving in and out of cover while getting shots off, now especially that shotguns are a lot more powerful. You can also use it for getting those clutch revives and even avoid airstrikes and grenades, and that's just to name a few things. There is actually no way you can destroy a Gibby Dome, and lasting 12 seconds with a reasonable cooldown of 30 seconds, I think it is a very good tactical. Second best in A tier, I've put Bangalore with her smoke launcher. I love this tactical personally, as it can be used in multiple ways to aid you and your team by smoking your position in order to rotate or retreat, get revives off, and even taking fights while using a digital threat scope is very strong. Bangalore has 2 smokes with a 33-second cooldown, which makes it very usable when you are never really finding yourself waiting on it. Bangalore is a top pick for me when it comes to a tactical this season. Coming in first in A tier is Catalyst and her piercing spikes. This ability is great for holding down buildings, as you can place it under doors, but not only this, it's very hard to destroy as you need to get up close to it to shoot the orb in the middle, which has 300 HP to destroy. It has quite a big area of coverage, 2 meters by 11 meters to be precise. It has 2 charges with a relatively short cooldown of 25 seconds, dealing 15 damage each second while you're on top of it, making it one of the more powerful tacticals in the game. Moving on to S tier now with the 2 tacticals that can't be rivaled with in my opinion. In second place we have Horizon and her Gravity Lift. This is a very strong tactical, allowing you to gain height fast, either to pop a battery or cell mid-fight, reposition yourself or get high ground. The Gravity Lift lasts 10 seconds, which is more than enough time to use it twice in one go, and with a cooldown of only 15 seconds makes it very accessible. I'd like to add the fact that you can still use weapons, throw grenades and use her ult at the top of her Gravity Lift, which gives more of enough reason to have her at the top of the list. Now in my opinion, the number 1 spot with the best tactical in the game so far is the robot we all know and love, Pathfinder, and his grapple. Not only do I think that this is the best tactical in the game so far, it's one of the most fun to use, as once you get enough playtime and experience with it, I feel like there are so much creative and endless ways to use it. For gaining quick height, outplaying enemies, covering an insane amount of ground, closing gaps when you crack shells, and even resetting fights are just to name a few. The skill gap is quite big and can take some time to master, but will never let you down once you have the hang of it. I've seen some really crazy clips of Pathfinder and his grapple that would make anybody want to try him out. So that's it guys, my tier list for the best and the worst tacticals in Season 18 so far. I'd love to know your thoughts and feelings on this and whether you'd change anything down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, and if you're new, subscribe with notifications on.